Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Denver Psychic School podcast. My name is Andrew Fritz,
And I'm Heather Fritz.
and we got another topic for you today. Usually we kind of choose a topic that we're just kind of certain theme we're kind of noticing kind of throughout the week, and something I've been noticing kind of with students that I've been working with, kind of in our life together, and that's trusting spirit, and to be a little more specific, kind of trusting your higher self. Which can be super exciting, but also incredibly terrifying.
Because it has nothing to do with logic.
Exactly. And I think that's typically how most people in their lives operate, is just off of logic and just kind of things being just based off the intellect and just very rational.
Yes.
That's very
1 + 1 is 2, right?
Yes, it's very safe. That's what's kind of enforced and validated in society, and that's kind of why it's really ingrained in us to kind of operate in that way.
Yes.
And so we're the weird people that choose to go a different route and teach that different route. And it's been very highlighted throughout the week.
Yeah. Like just trust.
Exactly, right. And to kind of kick this off is that, we'll talk about the soul and kind of the three parts of it. But to set that up, I think that, again, kind of most people in the world, I think that they tend to identify as the physical body. They think they are the physical body.
Right.
And well, as we all know, the physical body has an expiration date. So that can create a lot of fear. And so some people just might not want to hear anything to do with just the notion of death and dying, because it's kind of terrifying.
Well, most people look at that as the end, like that's the end of all, and it really you're
Right.
Yeah, that's not the end of all.
Right. Then you get some people that say, like, oh, I have, my soul, or I have a soul. And the thing is, you don't have a soul, you are the soul. You have a physical body.
Yeah.
And you have this relationship with a physical body. And everything that we've been learning and that we also teach is to kind of strengthen that relationship with your physical body. And your body's always in present time.
Yes.
So getting back to the soul, some people might think that there's just kind of one part of the soul, and that's that. Actually, there's these three parts of you, the being, the soul. And so the first part we can just kind of briefly touch on is the feeling self, or most people might kind of think as the heart, because this part of you resides in the physical heart. And kind of each part might communicate in a different type of way. And this part would communicate via emotion.
Gotta love those.
Yeah, so yeah, emotions, they're not complicated at all. Yeah. So, this part is a very sensitive part of you, and it's yet also a very powerful part of you. But it is the caretaker kind of your memories. Next part of you would be kind of considered like the reasoning self, the part of you that might reside kind of in that pineal gland area of the brain in the body. This is the part of you that kind of oversees analytical function. It's the part of you that might utilize different types of data or information to form conclusions about different types of things. And so that you kind of have this classic kind of like heart and mind aspects and kind of situation. And we all kind of can relate to, times in our life where, about a particular situation, whether it's about a job, right? About a relationship, whatever it is, the heart feels one way about that particular thing, but then, your mind, so to speak, thinks, something completely different about that same thing. And you kind of have this kind of internal clash happening where these two parts aren't really kind of in agreement. And that can be kind of troublesome. And as you may have experienced different times of your life. I know I have, for sure.
Same.
Yeah. So these three parts of you can kind of operate independently, kind of in that example. They might not be in agreement. And the thing is that they can also operate kind of in unison, which is kind of the aim of the goal. And that's something that starts to happen little by little when you learn to meditate. And there's this other part. Oh, the part of you that actually might not actually fit in this physical body, that's not really even in this lifetime, so to speak, or this incarnation, kind of resides out of the body, outside the aura, so to speak, the energy field around the body. And that's the part that some people refer to as, the higher self, or some people say like the God of your heart.
Mm,
It's kind of like your personal North Star, and
mm,
it's the part of you that, definitely not limited to this lifetime, and it has information about, why are you here in this kind of specific lifetime?
mm.
Has that information about your purpose for this lifetime.
Kind of has that bird's eye view.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. Think of it as like if you're like wandering a forest and you're completely lost. And a good metaphor for life sometimes. Sometimes we're just walking around and going, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. And there's this part of you that's kind of like, like you said, kind of like the bird's eye view, kind of like a helicopter that's just kind of just, floating along, flying above, high above. And it's the part of you that's kind of looking down. It's part of you that's neutral. Um, and it has the big picture. And so then it goes, oh, well, what if you start to become aware of that part of yourself
Mm,
and start to, instead of looking outside of yourself, maybe in books or somewhere in the world or other people for, um, validation, but especially your answers,
mm,
and you start to go, oh, wait a second, maybe that's not working, or maybe that's not where my answers actually are. What if
mhm.
I start to become aware of this part that has that bird's eye view, that has kind of my truth and my answers, my information,
Can see where I'm going before I'm going that way.
right? That has kind of like, hey, this is, I have the original intention of, why we,
Why you're here.
yeah, exactly, why you're born, and what are you doing here? Why not kind of look to that part of you?
Mm,
And yeah, and that's kind of that.
what we do.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we teach, and that's kind of what's been highlighted here is that, oh, well, instead of kind of basing things off of looking outside of yourself, or especially just very, has to be rational and logical, and that's very like safe.
Mm,
And because once you start to kind of bring this idea up of, oh, what if I look to my higher self?
mhm,
Then there's this fear, well, oh, is it real? Like, can I really trust that? It's
mm.
I can't, it's not physical, like I can't touch this. This seems very real.
It's not mathematical. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's very like,
Right.
it's based on spirit. It's your truth, which is very hard to like hold up in the real world and be like, this is it. And other people even validate or believe that. That's probably one of the other hard parts of that is like you can connect to your higher self, get your answers, and if you say it out loud to anyone, they're like, okay, I consulted with my higher self. I'm gonna quit my job tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone's gonna look at you and go, are you nuts?
Right. Yeah. Then you could feel a little crazy, even if you don't actually go out and say anything to anybody
Oh
else
yeah, even
about
if you
this
just sit with yourself,
information.
yeah.
Even if it's just with yourself. So what comes up is that invalidation, the invalidation on spirit. And there's a lot of that.
Mm,
And especially when it comes to connecting with your higher self, being in communication with that higher part of you.
mm,
Um, and yeah, so that's kind of like something we've been noticing. As we talk about this, maybe you can start to think about, oh, yeah, maybe there have been plenty of times and kind of playing it safe and kind of just, it has to be kind of logical and rational. What if I started to open up to this idea of communicating with this, my
mhm.
personal North Star? And,
Oh,
and what,
yeah,
what would, what kind of communication would I get?
right.
And, yeah, sometimes it can kind of bring about a little bit of fear, but it's also at the same time a lot of excitement
Well, yeah,
because,
and validating because you can always feel like when something's not quite right,
yeah,
but you're playing it safe. You're like, oh, this is what I've been taught to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. And it's just like, but it just doesn't feel quite right. But then if you talk to your higher self and they're like, oh, yeah, no, crazy, that wasn't right for you. You're like, it's almost validating and freeing. You're like, I knew it.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, if you're going to get in alignment with that part of you, and, when it comes to intuition, that's really what we're talking about here is higher intuition.
Mm,
Um, it's starting to listen. Like
Mm,
that's kind of the first part of it, right? Can you even start really being aware of, it's a very quiet voice, you know what I mean?
mm,
Like everything, the people, the world, the people in your life,
mm.
kind of the ego mind and all that, it's just very loud and noisy and chattery. And you learn to meditate to kind of, dial that down. And whoa, okay, wait a second, things are a little more quiet now. Now you can start to tune into this higher part of you, which is a kind of a quiet voice.
Mm.
Um, but you can start to receive some of your answers and your next steps. And hey, what are you getting that, pulling that information about, what are you supposed to do here? What's the whole point? What's your why?
What's your purpose?
And I think that, if you can do that, that leads you down a path of, um, you know, having your mock-ups, things that you kind of, want to have in your life, or, following your dreams or fulfilling your purpose. I think all that was very exciting and brings about a lot of enthusiasm and excitement and happiness and joy, and ultimately peace, right? And I think if you're going down the other, fork in the road of, like play it safe and it has to be rational and logical, and this is what, my family said I should do, and this is what this book told me that I need to do.
This is what this professor said I should do.
Right. That's not really your truth or your answers and information. Um, but yeah, going back to trusting, spirit, trusting your higher self.
Hmm.
So this is something that you can kind of just take a look in your own life and just start to go, wait a second, has there been times where you were kind of going the, logical, rational route? And where did that ultimately lead you? I usually find that if that's the route that I'm going, um, usually I'm not the most happy. I mean, to be totally, open and honest, usually I end up disappointed, or I end up bored, or I end up frustrated or angry or kind of sad or just,
Or there's a 30 pack of beer in the fridge, which is not normal when you're happy.
right. Yeah. Yeah. That's eventually you kind of get down to a point where it's just like, hey, you could start numbing yourself, from these, not pleasant emotions, these lower emotions.
Mm.
Um, and then going, oh, has there been any time in your life where you just kind of maybe didn't even know where it came from, but you had this inspiration and you just went with it? You didn't, give in to any of the fear that came up immediately after the invalidation. You just went, okay, this is exciting, and I'm just going to go with it and ran with it. And if you don't have it, that's totally fine, but you might have. And if you haven't, then maybe that's something to start to kind of take a look at and just go, oh, wait a second. And so, what is one way to start to work towards that? And I think that's learning to meditate.
Mm.
That's something that we do offer at our school. It's called the Psychic Tools Level 1 class, just a basic meditation series.
Mhm.
You want to talk a little bit about kind of what people might learn in that series?
So with the meditation series, you're going to begin by learning your psychic anatomy or spiritual anatomy, if you will, learning your chakras, your aura, your energy channels, all those glorious things that you're going to be using throughout the rest of your psychic journey. And then grounding, releasing, replenishing with your own energy, which is amazing. That's one of my favorite things to do. And learning to use the energy of forgiveness. That is super powerful, very healing, very neutral. I love forgiveness because if I didn't have forgiveness, I couldn't do my job. Because working in customer service is ridiculously hard without forgiveness. You're just in resistance the entire time. And then after that, you'll be learning about how to run Earth and Cosmic through your body, which is also very neutral and very healing
Mhm.
and very powerful tool. Then you're going to learn how to get neutral, how to get introduced to the center of your head, and then um, creating and destroying energy.
Mhm.
Learning to just kind of because really energy, you can't create or destroy it. Like that's kind of a weird term way of putting it, because energy is energy. You can't create or destroy it. It's always there, but there's a way to neutralize it and change it and alter it and clear out your space a little more. And then there's we call it cutting cords, but it's actually like just kind of disconnecting from everyone and getting to re-own your space, and it's just your space and you get to kick everybody out of it. And I love doing that.
Mhm.
I love harpooning everyone out of my space and it's all mine. Let's see, after that, and then um connecting to your higher self. I was like, oh my God, I almost forgot. It's a very last class. And that's what we're really talking about here is really getting in touch with your higher self. So really it all leads up to getting your answers. Because like we were talking about, not going to others for your answers in a way that's you're clearing the energy out of your space. You're learning to do that. You're learning to disconnect from everyone. And then that quiets the noise. And then the very last class, you learn how to connect with your higher self and get your answers and maybe the class you'll get your answers right away because this is a very intense process and maybe you will get your answers right away, but you have the tools then.
Right.
Like, I don't want you guys to get super excited, like, oh, I'm gonna get my answers by the end of it, because sometimes there's a lot of energy on it and it's a little more difficult, but you'll have the tools, you'll know how to do it, you know how to kick everyone out of your space, you'll know how to have forgiveness, you'll know how to ground yourself, get yourself safe, and you'll know how to connect to your higher self and get your answers. So even just in that 6 week period, you'll gain so much of yourself and you'll be able to just own your space. That's huge.
Right. Yeah. That's, the more you can start to own your space, you get a greater sense of, a little more clarity and certainty. But yeah, you learn these tools that can, like you said, at the end, if you connect with your higher self and you might get some information, that's awesome. It might not get a ton of information, but you have the tools to kind of, oh, well, now I can kind of go back in meditation and keep working towards connecting with that higher part of you and getting some insight.
Mhm.
And some people, they take that series and that's kind of does it for them. And some people want to, continue on kind of this spiritual journey. And before we get to that, maybe we can announce some of the dates for that meditation series, the Psychic Tools.
Yes.
So when does that happen?
So I am leading one on March 10th. And it's going to be every Sunday night for 6 weeks, from 4:30 to 6 p.m. Mountain Time. That is in person. So if you're in Denver, and you want to take this series and it sounds like something that works for you and you can come on Sunday nights, absolutely. Please go on to the website and email me, reach out to me or somehow through the website. And we'll get you set up with that. And it'll be a lot of fun because I'm fun.
Yeah, the address is on the website. So if you're wondering like where we are, particularly in Denver, go to the website, denverpsychicschool.com. That way you can kind of, you can see kind of around your picture, your bio, there's like a way to email her directly about that particular meditation series. And it will show kind of where we're exactly located.
Say we're located in Sakura Square. I think it's pronounced Sakura. I could be saying that completely wrong. It's like the corner of like 19th and Laramie.
It's lower downtown, yeah, Denver. And then we're also teaching another meditation series, but it's gonna be online based, and that will start May 10th. Again, one class per week. That'll be at 4:30 p.m. Mountain Time.
Those are on Fridays, and that one is online. So if you are listening to us from Pennsylvania or Florida or California and you want to hop in on that, absolutely.
Yep, yeah. So, best of both worlds. And this is a lot of fun. This is a big topic, and I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
expand on it through future episodes.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. Well, this is kind of the core of everything we do. So yeah, this was an episode we were really anxious to film and really excited to talk to you guys about. And if you only knew how many takes we had to do before we got to this one. If you like this video, like it. If you want to send it to a friend who maybe would find this information helpful, send it on. You want to comment questions, thoughts, feelings, what's your higher self saying?
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.